You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our V.A.C. Roundtable number 48, Medical Cannabis, the State of Compassion. We wanted to highlight state cannabis programs. We wanted to talk specifically about what was happening around the country as we see other states coming online. We want to see people replicate what we've done in different states. One is what we have done since the inception of my dispensary, which is always contribute to those who could not afford cannabis. So Berkeley Patients Group was founded by an AIDS patient, and way before there was, this idea of charitable giving, he realized quite a few people around him after working at the OCBC could not afford cannabis because the price, already, as we know currently, is expensive. However, before there was legal access, it was quite expensive, and you were beholden to what was accessible to you regarding medical cannabis and what your access was. And most people like myself were driven directly to the streets and into dark alleys, bathrooms, and different areas to negotiate finding your cannabis and, knowing it wasn't tested, all these, realities that came with it. And others around us found through Dennis Perone that charitable giving was something that everybody could feel good about. Being able to help out people is something that is very helpful and very good for the soul. And then I found back myself when I was a fresh patient back in 93 and working for the Cannabis Action Network. Fortunately, one of Dennis Perone's growers was kind enough to adopt a veteran. And each week he would provide me with a fresh eighth of sticky green bud. And considering I was working as a volunteer with the Cannabis Action Network, anything free, holy cow, was awesome. And two, was something that helped me out greatly. So as Berkeley Patients Group was founded in 99, and as I came to it in 2001, the charitable giving has always been there, and it continues to this day. However, as the laws changed around us, as medical cannabis and dispensaries became legal in California, and as legality came towards California, there was definitely some fundamental shifts in what we had and what was available. And one of the things we initially lost with Prop 64 with its vote in 16 was the ability to give away free cannabis. So in California, we had to pull some strings and work behind the scenes and change the laws and write a new law called SB 34, which, needless to say, has been a challenge all the way around. So I wanted to check in with Nate, who's here in California as well. He was part and worked on SB 34, which was a groundbreaking piece of legislation in California after Prop 215 allowed for us to give away cannabis for decades. After losing that access, we had to go to Sacramento, rally support around the state to continue to gain access to free cannabis for patients. And Nate is a lobbyist in Sacramento, and he's been working diligently to change the laws. So, Nate, give us your experience from what happened in California regarding SB 34. Thank you and
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Yeah, I'm a newer entry. I joined the industry in 2015, and it was really compelling to me how much collaboration and great giving. So many dispensaries had amazing programs and people that were dependent on these donations. And then someone decided it was a good idea to get rid of all this. And then if you wanted to donate it, you still had to pay the taxes on it at a fair market value. It seemed very backwards. And it was unfortunate because there was programs and ATN, I'm sure we can go into more detail, that were around for decades. And they, they were all nonprofits. All these people were doing it out of the kindness of their heart, were almost disappeared. And almost everything was gone. But then we're like, no, this industry was founded on compassion and we got to keep it around. So now after a lot of back and forth, it took almost 2 years to get it back on. SB 34 allows you to now donate, and there's all these regulations around it, but it allows you to donate it without having to pay taxes on it, not putting the burden on the business owners that are already burdened with all these regulations and taxes, at least to be able to donate it. It was a temporary fix, like most of California's laws. When they first passed them, they're not a lifetime. There's a sunset clause, which I believe ends at the end of next year. So that is something that we need to continue fighting for. And California was the first medically. There are other states now coming online, and we really encourage anyone that's in the state that doesn't have any laws to make sure that it's enshrined either on the ballot initiative, if it's passing there, or if you're passing it through the legislature, that there is a clear language talking about nonprofit organizations giving it away. There's a great program in the Bay Area in California, for example. It's in Oakland and HelloFresh, where there's a lot of extra product on the market, and Nicole, I can't pronounce the last name properly. She talks to the different brands, and she has goodie bags for veterans every month. So it's a place for them to socialize and check in. Some of them are 100% disabled and don't really have a lot of social life, and then that's a place for them to meet. And then a lot of times that they're relying on that completely on cannabis. That's in a nutshell of what I see in California, and I really do not want to see it go away, because it really is one of the main reasons why I joined the industry. And it's still an amazing thing where you don't see in many other industries where businesses are making sure that people that can't afford it get some. So I'm curious to see how it is in other states. I really applaud the states that don't have anything. And please make sure that it's make it your cannabis constitution, that compassion programs are part of it.
Well, compassion programs were initially every dispensary in California did it. It started with Dennis and Jeff and others, all found a need to donate. And then when the laws changed with Prop 215, growers could find if they could get a collection of doctor's notes and put them on a wall. When the police came through, they left people alone. So earlier on, I would say for decades, basically BPG has purchased cannabis outright. Initially, it was low quality until we could afford better. And initially, since every dispensary was giving away free cannabis, there became initially back in now I'm talking 99 through like 2008, every dispensary gave away free cannabis, and depending, not many produced proper paperwork to show that they were going to a physician. Regardless, people would do the circuit on Giving Tuesdays, as it was known, and people would rack up quite a lot of cannabis from. So we wanted to come up with ways on how we could differentiate. And back in 2004, 2005, we looked towards social workers and what do social workers use as their guides for proving somebody was low income. And so that was, proof of statements and various other forms of identification that could prove that these people were low income. And so we were able to stop a lot of the abuse, because people were just saying, hey, I'm a patient, I'm here for free weed. And then people would just give them free weed and they go out their way. And at the end of the day, they'd have 2 ounces of free weed. And people were getting kind of disgruntled about that because people were selling on the side and doing unscrupulous things. So the compassionate giving is necessarily always comes with its own set of challenges, i.e., such as, proof of residency. The laws changed in Berkeley to where we had compassionate giving as part of the city law. So we have to give away up to 2% of our profits to Berkeley residents. So that is something we already had been doing. However, the other dispensaries in Berkeley now had the legal obligation to follow suit. So it's been with its own, again, set of challenges to get people to rise to the occasion. And unfortunately, as state laws continue to expand and grow, we did not see compassionate giving grow with the industry. In some areas we did. However, in some states, we did not see any type of charitable giving. So it's needless to say, frustrating to have been a pioneer in this, and then to see the laws change to where we could not give away cannabis, where we had to buy our cannabis and and then charge like a penny or something or $1 for it, due to the laws until SB 34 passed. And unfortunately, that's going to be sunset. And this was the Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary Act. And it's continuing currently, but next year or so, it's actually going to sunset. So we're going to have to work in California to continue compassionate giving, because they are a staple for a lot of us. And one of our members here, Mr. Brian Buckley, actually does so in Southern California. So, Councilmember Buckley, would you like to talk about the charitable giving and the steps that veterans have to go through to obtain it there in Southern California in some of the donation, SB 34 donation drops that you do?
Yeah, I believe really it's not difficult for the veteran to go obtain, the requirements they have to in order to participate in SB 34. I know it's just like a little bit of paperwork and stuff. I'm not the master on that. I got a couple other people who work it, but I know it's not a huge deal. Yeah, it's a little disappointing. I mean, we've been very active participants with it, and it's been great. We actually now with Bauer Brothers are planning to do an SB 34 event in January with a shop down in Pacific Beach, where we'll actually be hosting it. And we got some other veteran brands that are going to come out and support. So listen, it's all a lot of positives. It's very good for veterans. It enables them to get their medicine. There's more of this happening, so they're not traveling great distances. I know people are going to work on this. I know it's going to be common sense legislation to keep this program going. So I'm not too concerned. It's just a little more frustrating. There was a sunset clause. Unfortunately, I'm just going to voice something that's not popular. One thing that we are finding is, say, if there's like 4 of these events in a 5-mile radius, you're going to see the same person there at each one, and they're probably not using the medicine for themselves. So there are a little bit of guardrails we probably need to discuss, that this is going out to people who need it, not people who are like, hey man, I'm gonna do a little side hustle on some benevolent donations type of thing, which I'm sure everyone here could agree with. But For the most part, it's been a great experience, and it's just not just a cannabis; it's a camaraderie ship. I mean, we bring out taco trucks. We did a whole thing, and it's a great way just to kind of sit and have conversation with veterans. I'm never going to say, "Hey, go take some cannabis, and your life's going to be perfect." That's one part if it makes sense. It's a very much of a holistic approach that we need to do to help these men and women live the American dream they fought so hard to defend. So hopefully, I answered your question there, ATM.
Yes, and they're basically you find donations. There's organizations like Weed for Warriors Project, Veterans Cannabis Coalition, Battle Brothers Foundation that are currently available in California to assist in helping your dispensary if you want to give away charitable donations and would like to be a spot to do so. Berkeley Patients Group, we've used Operation EVAC as ours. And Ryan Miller and his crew, such as also when I do the judging for Emerald Cup, I donate my cartridges to them, and they go directly into veterans' hands as donations. And when we used to have our corporate office, they used to be able to do their donations and giveaways, and now they do them through us. And also Sweet Leaf. Sweet Leaf in California is Sweet Leaf Joe is one of the oldest. He's been doing it for 25 years. We've been doing it for 23 years. He has led by example by making sure that patients continue to gain and have access to cannabis, because one of the things we learned, we don't know if today is somebody's first day or their last day, and they should be treated with the same respect and dignity as anyone else. And it's just one of those things. So next up, I will go to Pennsylvania and to George Armstrong. He has been a long-standing activist trying to do the best that he can there in Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania's come with its own set of challenges, and California has its own law. However, that's not the same thing that's available there in Pennsylvania. So Council Member George Armstrong is going to give us a lay of the land there on the East Coast there in Pennsylvania. Thank you, George. Welcome.
All right. Thank you, Etienne. Yeah, I'm kind of going to do that. But actually, I'm going to step up for the other 49 states besides California, because we have a lot of experience right here. And I challenge anybody to find another state that has a program, anything comparable to California's. It's really the only true compassion program in the country. So it's really important that you guys save it. But the rest of us, the compassion programs usually is a break on getting into the program on the cost of the doctors or the cost of the state fee. Here in Pennsylvania, they wrote compassion into their law. Once all the investors got their money back, basically, then it was going to start. But we're now 6 years in, and they just probably a year ago now, they gave people that receive public assistance, they waived the $50 state fee. That's the limits of our compassionate program. And I know most of the people that I've talked to from other states, it's very similar. The amount of money that I've saved on my by allowing discounts is really the only compassion that we have in our program, right? So as a veteran, I get 20% at all of the ones that I go to, I get 20%. Most of them started at 10 or 15, but it's pretty much 20 across the board, 20%. But actually, if you go and look at it, people who are in the worst, like not all veterans are disabled and on fixed incomes, right? There are a lot of veterans that have a 20-year career and are still working, but they're still veterans, right? But if you go and look at the people that are on public assistance that are truly under the poverty level, they're only getting 15%. So like Nate said, having a true compassion program written into the law with specifics is the ideal way. Now, getting that done, I haven't been able to see anybody. Like I said, I would like to, I'd be very interested if.
Hey, Al, get up. You're sharing the screen, bud. All right, carry on there, George. Sorry.
Oh, did I go out?
That was awesome. George goes out. Al starts sharing a screen. I just felt like we're so old and so untech savvy for a minute there. Sorry.
We absolutely exonerated ourselves in unprofessionality beyond measure. Okay, George, where were you?
All right, so I'm going to leave the video off, and hopefully my internet will hold up. But yeah, I would be very interested as to if any other council member can tell me a state that has a comparable program to California, because I don't really think it exists. Most states, people are getting, like I said, people are getting a waive of a fee or something, a one-time thing, a one-time discount as something that's labeled a compassion program. And I think we can all agree that that's really not what these programs are supposed to achieve. So that's what I have. Our compassion program is shitty. You get a lot more out of sheer discounts than what was supposed to be written into the law and show true compassion.
Well, in California, needless to say, earlier on, it was all flowers. However, one of the things we learned early on is not everybody can ingest flowers. So we were also able to open it up for edibles, cartridges, and any of the patient's modality within a reasonable point. So that's also, one of the things we made sure is that, because some people can't use smoke, they're older patients, right? As well as such as when we worked in hospice, we also would donate volcanoes so that people had a vaporizer so that they were at least safely ingesting if they needed to have quick onset, because a lot of the older patients could not wait or had contraindications from edibles. So so different modalities is key. So again, not just giving away flour, which is easier to do. It's a little more challenging than to adjust to individual patients' needs, but it's required because of the sensitivity and needs that are required of patients. So next, we're going to go to Michael Crowitz in Virginia. He's going to give us an update. His state just turned adult use legal just this year. So give us an update. What's happening there in Virginia, Mike?
Sure, man. I guess before I start with Virginia, just to give a little context, I guess I started working on medical cannabis access. It's hard. I talk about a genesis for folks that learned about cannabis back in the 1970s, and then in the 80s and 90s became older and broken down and disabled and and needed cannabis more as a medicine than maybe in their youth, and more recognized cannabis as a medicine. Once you discontinue it and you see that the only withdrawal symptoms are actually knee pain or hip pain or back pain or whatever, that's not a withdrawal symptom of cannabis. That's your underlying condition rearing its head. So anyway, that's how I got into medical cannabis. Was one of the first big things I worked on was Prop 215 with Dr. Tom, and I knew Dr. Mikaria pretty well already by then in 96. Coming back to Virginia, and this is why I wanted to talk about California in context, because here I'm working on advanced access to cannabis in an environment that perceives itself as decrim. I say perceives itself because decrim actually came later in California, but sure as heck, people perceived it as being decrim anyway, long before it was. And in Virginia, at that time, in the early 90s, mid 90s, we were fighting back like death penalty bills and bills that would strip all your rights as a cannabis user, and on and on. I mean, it was just this constant litany of bad bills that we had to stop. So here we were working a really cool positive stuff out in California, but in Virginia, all we spent all day our time working on was stopping bad stuff from happening, which if you stop something bad from happening, by the way, you don't ever get any credit for that, because nobody ever knows that, the bad thing didn't happen. But thank God all those bad things didn't happen, because we wouldn't be in a position where we are today had we had to dig ourselves out of the hole that they were trying to dig. And just one last little note on that. At one point, it got so bad that we had a governor that put forth this huge plan that he called his SABRE plan on drugs, with all kinds of bad marijuana, policy in it. Thankfully, most of those bills we were able to kill, but the Richmond Times Dispatch did an editorial and they called him Vlad the Impaler, the governor. And they said that his drug policies were going to have the roads to Richmond lined with heads on stakes, heads on posts. So that was pretty vivid, imagery that I remember to this day from the Richmond Times. Thank you very much for helping in the cause, their newspaper. But we actually worked for many years on decrim. We had a legislator that he actually wanted to just pass an expungement bill, something that would help his constituents that were trying to get like a government job and had a marijuana offense from years ago. And he worked on that for a couple of years. He actually didn't get anywhere with it because it would run into the wall of you can't expunge records essentially without actually just decriminalizing cannabis. That's what he found. So this will be an important story later in just a second, but that happened to cause him to write the very first decrim bill. It was about 7 years ago. And that decrim bill was a perennial bill that we fought very hard for. In the meantime, CBD came down the pike, the whole Dr. Sanjay Gupta reports, and in a very conservative state like Virginia, that was the door that we went through to get medical marijuana started. And it sucked. It was limited products. Nobody really thought the bill was anything. But over the next few years, while working on decrim and working on that medical marijuana, we expanded the medical marijuana program to make it more and more like a real program. And we finally got to a point where the legislature flipped and it became fully democratically controlled. And to my surprise, frankly, the Democrats actually did what they said they were going to do. In the absence of resistance from the Republican Party, they actually passed a whole bunch of legislation. So the first year, they decriminalized cannabis, which I said had been fighting for 6 years to get passed. And then they opened up the medical cannabis program, legalizing it for the first time, because up until then, it was just an affirmative defense if you got caught with marijuana. That wasn't good enough for me to tell vets to even use it. How can I tell a veteran to use medical marijuana if I have to tell them some cryptic story about what you're supposed to tell the judge? No. It has to be actually legal before I would start telling vets about it. So that was just a couple of years ago that this all came down the pike. And interestingly, and this is where that little tidbit from before becomes interesting, our noble frontline activists there in Richmond and the Democratic Party, in their wisdom, sent over a bill to the governor to sign that legalized marijuana in like several years when the first shops opened. And meanwhile, the governor wanted to expunge records, and this was the big expungement. This is legalization expungement, not decrim expungement. And this is going to be a really deep cut and help a lot of people. But he couldn't do it. Why couldn't he do it? Because, and we pointed this out to him in the same way that we did, the previous time. How could you expunge records when you're still making new records? So we convinced him to actually send it back to the legislature, allow for home cultivation and sharing amongst yourselves. And that's what we wound up with, was the 3-year out bill that would set up stores and all that. Hasn't happened yet. It had to get passed twice. That big bill had to get passed through the legislature, and it died last year in the legislature. So this big omnibus bill that sets up the timeline for a framework of adult regulated access is still years off, at least 4 years off, if it gets passed in this legislature. Meanwhile, people are growing their own. They're sharing. It's become a sharing economy, I guess, in Virginia. I don't even know all the extent of everything that's going on in Virginia, to be honest with you. And I'll put a lot of responsibility on the Republicans, who are now in firm control again, to do something with the regulations, because in the absence of regulations, we have problems with people selling hemp products that may or may not be all that great in the gas stations. Cannabis, that is being sold in the black market that is wide open because of the lack of a legitimate market. I guess I shouldn't call it the black market, call it the traditional market, I guess is what we're calling it these days, or the what was the other one? I forget now. But anyway, so that's where we're at here in Virginia. One last little detail. In the last legislature, we did actually get it passed through where you don't need a card from the state to get medical cannabis from a dispensary. We have 6 dispensaries throughout the state. You can get just a recommendation from a doctor. It has to be on a special Virginia form, of course, a certificate that they've created for the physician's statement, which is just a cannabis recommendation in any other state. That is all you would need to shop at one of these stores. It's not great. It's a patchwork quilt of access, and it's certainly far from perfect, but the products aren't bad. And for patients that really need it, at least there's a source. And certainly it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We win. It's a win-win. The longer they push it out, the more, traditional economy will build. And we'll try to do that right if we can. It's a little harder. That's where we're at.
So California's law, needless to say, SB 34, named after Dennis Pro and Bronnie Mary. It was community driven in response to revive compassionate cannabis donations. It does not create any tax incentives for anybody, but it does reduce the costs by excusing certain state taxes regarding cultivation tax, use tax, excise tax, depending on the license type. Okay. Just wanted to clarify for people. Properly coordinated across the state supply chain, SB 34 donations can be delivered to patients with a relatively low shared labor and material cost. Only a licensed California cannabis company can distribute this cannabis. Okay. We always viewed compassionate as a corporate social responsibility, right? Further, it also normalizes cannabis for both adult use and medicine. In California, it's a legal pathway to donate products and establish regular community outreach. And all license types can tag donated products. Unfortunately, one of the things we're seeing is toward the end of shelf life, products are being donated, and certain companies actually put that out, and there was a strong backlash around that, specifically reaction wise, because patients feel they should be given quality medicine. They should not be given degraded or bad medicine, as that would be considered, although it's not, I don't consider it bad. However, balanced against product that is expiring and isn't on the shelf, it is still a legal product that can go forward. So there's still their own ethical and dynamics of arguments going over and around that. And to speak, Brian Buckley, you got your hand.
Yeah, ATN, some great points there. And yeah, it's really SB 34, I would say, for me as a brand, when we're getting them out to dispensaries, it's pretty simple. I mean, we have a track and trace system. You just put it in SB 34 events. You got to make sure your manufacturing team or whomever is just putting for medical use only some sort of sticker, so they know that's exactly where it's going. It's an interesting point ATN brings up, and it's, it'd be a good debate, especially for people in California. I mean, listen, when your stuff expires after a year after it's been to testing, you can take your stuff and send it back to testing, and if it passes, so it's good to go. I mean, it's going to come back with another COA and it off and running. So it's a really interesting part here where you have people saying, hey, we should get like the stuff that isn't about to expire. When you're in the cannabis game, you're like, listen, we are having such tight margins as is, and things we can barely do just to keep the lights on. It's like, hey, everyone here wants to help, but again, it kind of goes to the big, I don't know, quagmire we created here in cannabis in California, the high taxes, high regulations, and the kind of, the ability of us not to be able to do as much as we want to. I mean, heck, my whole company's foundation is built on donating 100% of our profits back to our cannabis research. Guys, I'm putting like $15 back there, or like a month, it's like, I mean, we were barely keeping the lights on. That's just how this thing goes. So, one, I could talk taxes all day, and we hope California could wake up and understand how much money they're leaving on the table, because you have a lot of people in the illicit market who are not going to come over just due to the taxes. And by the way, especially in Los Angeles, they get maybe a tight, like a hand slap, not even a slap, maybe just, hey, stop doing that. They don't get fined that bad. And it's getting so ran by the cartels and illegal stuff, they don't care. They'll take the hit, and knowing they'll just open up back somewhere else in another couple days and make all the money back again without paying taxes, and they don't have to worry about anything. It is extremely frustrating. But, again, nonetheless, it's what we have. Hopefully we can improve upon it. And that's something, Nate, I know you're pretty deep into that. And, ATN, just with who ATN is, obviously knows a ton about this stuff. But, it would shock me if this thing doesn't go beyond 2023. I just can't see why they would not want to extend this in somehow, some way. But, again, Nate, ATN, anything I can do to help, and, in terms of what we're doing, please let me know. Because at the end of the day, guys, it is a really important program. I mean, like I said, I talk about the people who, it's not many of them, but they're coming in just to do a little side hustle, and they're going to take your donations and go out into the black market and sell it and make some cash. But then you do see a lot of those veterans who are just down and out. And again, it's great getting them cannabis, but I even get more fired up just giving them a taco and sitting down and having a 20-minute conversation with them, So it's just, again, about the community and kind of bringing everyone back together. And, cannabis is just a small part, but it's an important part to kind of bring us all together and see what we can do here.
Yeah, Nate, as the our lobbyist master there in Sacramento, what do we need to do? I guess we need to start coalition building. We need to reach out to the other SB 34 rally folk and start getting them together and beating down the halls again and starting to figure out how we can continue to give away free cannabis. I mean, I'll go back to buying it. It's more expensive that way, but I can't stop giving away free cannabis, and I'm not going to stop even though the law says so. So what do we need to do, Nate? What are some suggestions, ideas? What's your plan?
So at the moment, there's no opposition against it, so we don't have to fight people. It's more of I don't think the lawmakers had any ill intent with the sunset clause. It's just how a lot of California's laws pass, because they want to, when they're passing something, especially that's new to them, they want to give it a 4 or 5 years and then give themselves an out to evaluate it. It's not because they want to get rid of it or anything. So obviously do our coalition and go to Sacramento in April, May, when stuff starts going to appropriation. But I don't see this being a hard battle or anything like that. But I will. It's something that's on my top radar for 2023, and that and classifying veterans as equity applicants in California. Those are the two priorities. But I don't see. I think that'll be maybe a bit more of a battle. I don't know, but definitely the SB 34. I think it's just going to get reintroduced and then be permanent because they saw it's doing great. I do want to highlight Melissa Berger from Dear Cannabis. She's doing something a little different. Is she's built a supply chain. So she has a cultivator that donate the flower, then a manufacturer that will donate the process of turning it into concentrate, and then a co-package company to package it, and then a distributor move it around, and then a retail to give it out. And this is something she can export to other states because she's not actually doing the physical donations herself. So there are some cool, innovative ways now coming along to streamline this process and make it easier on the businesses that are donating. I really think that California does have something really cool, and really hope that we can export it to other states, because this is an amazing thing. And like Brian was saying, when you go to these events and you're just talking to someone, sometimes just hearing somebody out means more to them than any free stuff they're getting. They're actually having, especially if they live alone and they're lonely, having that 2 hours of interaction with other people is a great gift. So compassion doesn't have to be just the product.
And compassionate use doesn't just have to be giving away cannabis. It can also be teaching other veterans how to grow. So to clarify that too, so donating seeds and clones and equipment, there are companies that do that and have done wonderful things to assess and help these various veterans organizations as well. However, of course, we have some states that still have nothing. And a council member who is in one of those states has his hand up. So Council Member Dale.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about my state in particular, but I did send out a link on Michigan, and Michigan is starting a program. They're starting small, but it's for military veterans for medical cannabis with PTSD and brain injuries. And they're starting with a group of 25 people, and they're giving them free medical cannabis. And the goal of that group is to expand it to hundreds of military veterans. And so I think it'd be a great idea. And you guys are the ones who've been doing this longer, certainly longer than I have. So, but for me, when I see these things pop up, I find it very interesting. And I'm going to keep an eye on that one because I want to see how they do what they do, how successful they are, and how it differs from what's being done in other states, because it may be a benchmark of sorts going forward if it works for the veterans, for veterans with injuries and PTSD and so on. And really, that's the most important part for me, is to get medical cannabis for the veterans. And if we can get it at no cost, that would be fantastic. So that's the link I had sent. It's there's better research. There's better links for that program. I just sent the first one that I could grab today. So that's it.
Thank you, Dale. Let's see, Al Byrne, you're in Florida. What does the compassionate program there in Florida look like?
It looks like it is inviting tourists to come down here and smoke pot. The Florida is pretty much, this isn't something that's on the billboards, but what they have decided is a long time ago that tourism here is a big deal. And arresting people that come down here and charging them $500 and sending them back to Mississippi or something hasn't really worked too well. The interesting thing about cannabis is, from my perspective, is that 10 years ago, 15, I was working with Democratic guys that advise presidents and shit, whatever the hell their name is, and I was trying to, they were calling me about Florida, and I was saying, well, look, at the time I'm talking now, there was no southern state at all, none, that had anything to do with cannabis. It was all in the Northwest, California, started moving east, good, but there was nothing down here. And I kept telling these Democratic guys, I said, look, if you can get Florida to roll, if Florida will do something positive about cannabis, everybody will in the South. And that's exactly what happened. But the shame of it all was that when the cannabis momentum started to build down here in Florida, it went entirely the wrong way. The legislature here decided, my details are going to be a little bit off, but it's pretty close. The legislature decided that in order to be a legal cannabis grower in Florida, this is 6-7 years ago now, you had to be a nursery owner and operator for 40 years, 40. You had to operate a nursery for 40 years. And then if you met those criteria, you could get a cannabis license and grow cannabis in Florida for legally. So when we looked at that situation, we being the whole bunch of us down here, there were 6 people, 6 in Florida, the whole fucking state, that met those criteria. And of course, they were all rich and they were all white. Gee, Is this the South or what, you know? Anyway, that was a bummer, delayed the whole situation, but in a way it activated a lot of people, the color barriers, all those things were all of a sudden came into effect. The age, all these guys that could get the license were like 60. I mean, it was absurd. So now what happened in Florida is what came out of that is all good things. Hemp here is essentially legal. You got to get a license, but it's not a big deal. You know, I want to grow hemp. Okay, pay $50, grow hemp. And medical cannabis. I am very, very rural. I live about an hour from Tallahassee, and I don't really have anything close to me that I could go to and say, wow, this is I can get good quality cannabis. However, I drive an hour to Tallahassee. I'm estimating there are 20 dispensaries just alone in the capital city that have high quality cannabis. Several of them, you know, you order ahead and drive through, pick them up. They're like old bank buildings and stuff. And that is also, I'm in Northwest Florida. So this is also true in the South Florida, you know, the Miamis, the Tampas, all those, and again, down that way, they see easing up on cannabis use, possession, sales as a tourist boom. People are now understanding that they can come down and use cannabis on the beach, and they can smoke cannabis in their hotel balcony, and nobody's going to come in and arrest them. So I think that Florida and the governor here, a Navy vet, Bronze Star, SEAL type. He's a JAG that worked with the SEALs. Unbelievable combination. I still haven't figured it out. But anyway, he's very pro medical cannabis, and so we see recreational coming our way very soon. You know, in a bigger way than it is in medically. So Florida's very positive. I'm sorry for especially for Dale. Man, he's in the wrong world. But come on down, visit me. I'll take you on a tour.
So what Brian was speaking towards was metric system. Metric is the system in our state. And so SB 34 is legally and brought through that system of metric. So it is fully documented from beginning to exit so that the state can track and trace it. So now that we've talked about compassion, and if you look around and you're in a state that doesn't have compassionate giving as an option, well, what do? Well, this is where you have to get up your ass. You have to get active. I recommend you find a state organization that is cannabis related and working in your state capital. If not, create your own and go down and get involved. Create your talking points, create your pamphlets, and put on a suit and tie and get your ass down to your capital and do so with other like-minded people and build coalitions. Build coalitions with other organizations, veterans organizations, charitable giving organizations like Battle Brothers Foundations and others that can show you how to do what you're doing. You know, you can reach out to these organizations, Weed for Warriors Project, etc., and ask them what they're doing. They have chapters in states and areas and regions, and get involved. You know, step up and do your own. You know, Ryan Miller was able to create Operation V.A.C. and has a whole set of healing and tools and meditations for his veterans. So you can, you know, there's Veterans Walk and Talk where they're going out and they're helping veterans as well. So it's ways that you can find your talents. What can you do? You know, can you walk? Yeah. Okay. Well, then you can, you know, join Walk and Talk and go out there and be part of that, and then use that name if they give you permission, and then, you know, lobby at your state level and try to affect the change and use the momentum from us and other organizations and states as guides on how to get there. There is no easy way, people. It's a democracy, and it only works if you work it. I say it all the time. Either you're at the table or you're on the menu. So if you show up, guess what? You're at the table and you get to actually dictate terms. And that's when it's the fun part. And Nate will attest to you, you know, it's one thing when you're in the door and you're actually there. It's another thing when you're shifting the discussion and it's going in your favor from your input. Michael Krawitz has done it at the international level and affected change of medical cannabis, and he's helping us work internationally towards 2029 to actually make it legal worldwide for adult use. So we don't have to wait on these hodgepodges of laws or the US's draconian drag down, as well as, you know, it's going to take time. You're not going to come out and initially win. You're going to have to take some lumps. You may get an instant coalition and be able to move things forward. There's no way to predict it, but this is how we did it in California. We didn't like the law. We called, went physically down there. We physically lobbied. And out of that, we got a coalition and set of law changes that we're going to go back and change again. So we'll lead by example once again by showing you how we do it. And we look forward for the 49 other states to show us how they do it, because there's medical cannabis in 40 plus states. There should be 40 plus states with compassionate giving programs for low income veterans, as well as low-income individuals and people who cannot afford the cost of medical cannabis. There should not be access liabilities because of inaccess. Councilmember Byrne, you're recognized.
Thank you, ETN. I don't mean to go too far off from the conversation, but did you really make up that phrase about if you're at the table, you're okay, but if not, you're part of the menu? Did you really say that? Was that yours?
I didn't make it. No, I say it all the time. No, that's an old term. You know, either you're on the menu or you're at the table or on the menu. Yeah. No, Sabrina told me that one.
I hadn't heard it before. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. I think it's wonderful. Good for you. Okay.
It's what
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's what you and others taught us, to be in the room, participating in the discussion, because by doing so, you're setting that agenda, you're affecting that change. If not, you're just going to get what other people have dictated the terms of. So if you're passionate about cannabis, then put on your suit, go build your coalitions, suck your ego up a little bit, and, you know, work the system. The system's there to be worked. We've did it once in California. We did it multiple times in California. We're going to do it again. But other states can come online and help and find ways to help people, because hands down, the cost of cannabis is too high. The cost of cannabis because of prohibition was way too high. The cost of cannabis in the legal market due to taxation and everything is still too high. And especially our veterans who are on fixed disability incomes. This is why we also pushed and are pushing for what is happening in Canada. Because the compassionate program in Canada, the V.A.C, the Veterans Access to Canadian Veterans, allows to cannabis, allows for veterans, once they are given a disability rating, if you have 100% disability rating, you get 3 grams of cannabis free of charge per day, which means you can order that on the app from the actual state, on the state app, and within 48 hours, depending on your modality, if you want to smoke it, eat it, what is it, a patch, you know, cartridge, etc., not a problem at all. That you can actually order in any modality, as long as it adds to 3 grams per day, then it's mailed to you within 48 hours. Now, I know we're not going to get that here in the United States, but we definitely could get a voucher system in our states where it is legal to help subsidize and have veterans that can come down to my dispensary and I can accept that as legal tender so that they can get their cannabis and not have to worry about the price. Because if the veterans meds are what they are through the VA medical system, they should be the same way availability for cannabis. And we're not going to see it anytime soon, unfortunately. So these are examples that we took to DC and we're speaking in September about with those 26 people on the Hill that we met with, 27, pardon me, over those couple of days. Councilmember Buckley.
Yeah, I just want to say this out loud, so especially ATN and Nate, you guys hear this, because I think there is no reason why California can't be replicating what Canada's doing. And to that point, I saw a very alarming stat with the state of California, but I guess it just explains our politics in the state. We give $23 billion of taxpayer money to illegal immigrants. We give $1 billion to veterans. Does that make sense to anyone? Absolutely not. So why are you not taking that money that are going to people who came here illegally to actually men and women who serve the country and are in need of medical support? I mean, that is something like around election time, make that loud and proud and throw that into someone's face and say, listen, there's a media outside and I'll walk my happy ass right out there and have that conversation. Because I guarantee, hey, I'm all for immigration. I've helped, Christ, I got a guy from Iraq. We helped him immigrate here. I think it's amazing. But come on, this is just not making sense. I don't care where you are in the political spectrum. I mean, give me a break here.
Actually, you bring up a good point, and one that we should actually work on, Nate. We should actually take the Canadian program directly to the state of California, especially with the 30 billion surplus that the state is sitting on. Yeah, it should be subsidizing the veterans within the state and showing, leading by example. I think we've got some new things to work on. I think I'm going to have to join Cal Normal. All right, Dale, you're recognized, sir.
Well, you mentioned that Canada has it sent to their house based on their disability rating. I don't pay for any of my prescriptions through the VA because of my disability rating. So if that's the way, if that's the way the VAs could do it, I'm all for that. I mean, I'd like to help all the veterans and like to get it out to all the veterans, but I know some veterans, because their disability rating may be 10 versus 70, are paying for their prescriptions, but I think we have to look at it from that perspective too. The other part of it, of course, is it's not the VA hasn't embraced it yet, but if we're going to go down that path, then it could be linked to disability ratings.
And exactly that. And I think it's something to realistically consider, and one that Buckley has turned on the light bulb in my head on for sure, at least California wise. Al, you're recognized.
I'm going to pass. I want to hear more about what you guys think about all this, but on compassion, can I rant? Is it okay?
Rant away, sir.
I got a real problem. I got a real problem with this country and what they call compassion. Now, over the last couple of days, a female basketball player who was entering Russia with some cannabis, I think it was edibles, was arrested and convicted of breaking their country's laws. Okay. And so this woman, as I understand it, is pretty much anti-American. She won't even show up in the stadium when the America the Beautiful is sung or the Star Spangled Banner. She waits in the locker room until it's over. She won't have anything to do with the United States. So anyway, the United States went and they sprung her loose. And they traded her for a guy who is a known killer, murderer. Known. We know it. Everybody knew it. That's why he was in fucking jail for 25 years. So anyway, we traded a basketball player who was there on a cannabis conviction with a known killer internationally. Now, how many cannabis patients prisoners other in this country. You want to talk about compassion? You fucking talk to me at home. I don't know who's listening to me, but I'm telling you that this was a mistake by the State Department or the president or whoever the buffoons were that made this deal. You traded a basketball player for a killer and a basketball player who was arrested for cannabis use. And you're still arresting people in this country for cannabis use. What's wrong with you people? Thank you. That's my rant.
Right on. Well, I will say that the Marine who is still incarcerated in Russia, their family supports and understood the deal that was made, and it's not a great deal, needless to say. But regardless, that's not our topic or our discussion. So back to our discussion regarding to compassionate giving and compassionate use. Do we have any further states that want to come on board for that discussion at this time? Anybody have any further? All right, with that's the case, that's going to wrap it up for our discussion for tonight on compassionate, the state of compassion, medical cannabis. It needs more. And that's the reality that we have. We've got 40 plus states with medical cannabis access, but not enough access of medical cannabis for the patients. And that is something that I can say as a 23 plus year medical provider. Medical cannabis is still too expensive. Medical cannabis should be cheaper. And I'm glad the prices are coming down. I'm sorry the effect that it's had on people, but we have been suspending these realities by the reality that prohibition brought forward. And as the walls crumble, so do the costs. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. But we can't forget the reason why this was formed. And Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary were big believers in compassion and compassionate giving. And what started off in San Francisco spread throughout the rest of California, and the laws have spread to and throughout the United States. However, the compassionate giving has not, and we need to realize our places in it and what we can do to do better in those states, including our state of California, which is considered one of the leaders in compassionate giving, and we are and will soon be failing in that. So we have to change that. So I hope we've made you aware of the different alleys and avenues that this issue has or entails, especially. And we're going to finish up with Brian Buckley.
Yeah, thanks. So I spent this past week for Hellman Valley and Bauer Brothers putting together like a marketing campaign. So I'm exhausted. We had our film guy out here, man. We've been all over the place and it's been great. But the thing that we really focused on was we have like a lot of like a organization called like iSpire. Like you're going to hear a lot about them soon in 2023. I mean, they got some really great products coming out. One of our labs, like things like that. People are doing some really cool things for our organization and they want to help. And what I wanted to capture was it's not just all veterans. I think sometimes people feel a little bit hesitant to kind of get in a lane with veterans because like I didn't serve, I don't know what to do. But things like this, you know, encourage them how they can kind of step in and work beside all of us. I mean, it takes a lot of people to move it. And when you have, you know, you kind of give them a green light, like, no, please help us, support us. Like, we need your help. You know, we went forward for you. Now, maybe you could do it for us. People really want to do it. And I would just think it would be a natural thing they would want to, but I'm telling you, people are hesitant. So that's one of the things why we wanted to capture things on film that we're going to put out there on social media these are non-veterans busting their ass to help veterans accomplish their mission. And hopefully it goes well, but we're doing that to encourage more people to kind of raise their hand and say, hey, what else can I do? So just, you know, kind of think about that in your back pocket. Just, you know, a little advice from me.
And Dale.
I want to ask Brian a question. Is it all non-veterans or is it extended family of veterans? Does it encompass everything? I mean, I look and I think of my son, I think of my wife, I think of people who are affected by what I went through, what other veterans have went through, and some of that affects them. And so medical cannabis does go all the way through to non-veterans, and but there's veterans families too that are affected, and Gold Star families and things like that too that are affected. So when you say that non-veteran, are you talking about truly somebody who has no ties whatsoever to the military, or are you talking about veterans families, extended families, or all encompassing?
I just frame it. I just want to make sure I'm tracking how you're putting that. What we're talking about are people who are in the industry or whomever, just professionals who want to kind of help veterans, but sometimes they kind of feel like, I don't know, should I get involved in kind of with them in terms of doing the research or pushing forward for their stuff or lobbying for them. They're like, what we've done is we've shown companies that don't have any veterans, but they love what we're doing. They're now breaking their backs to kind of help support us and giving us deals and doing whatever they can to the best of their ability. And that's where we just want to kind of celebrate them, one, because it's awesome what they're doing, but then two, to kind of show, someone's light bulb might go over their head, like, well, why the heck aren't we helping these guys? I mean, we literally had a guy say, non-veteran, and he just goes, this cannabis will go as far as helping die growers will go. So why are we all not helping you? And
Got it.
That's a powerful statement, So I think in that terms, like when you're talking about people who want to donate, it's everyone. I was kind of thinking with what you're saying with families, Gold Star families, or, God, I can be moody as hell here at my house and it impacts my family, type of things like that. The one things I always try to talk to people is post-traumatic stress isn't a veteran issue, it's a human condition. In terms of the way we're kind of putting our research forward, like with me and ATN's working with us in Battle Brothers, we have a veteran status. We can throw that card onto a legislator's desk and say, you sent us awards, your turn to fix us. And I tell people, I'm like, we're not Hollywood actors. We're not athletes. We're literally men and women who raise their right hand, sign a blank check payable with their lives. And if you kind of broke down our hourly wage while we're deployed, we're probably making like $1.35 an hour.
Right.
So it's like, but use us so we can kind of break that glass ceiling with the legislators, and then it'll benefit all patients around the country.
No, I get you now, because what you said in the middle there, I've got a couple of friends that own a company down in Chicago, and they said, look, we didn't serve, but we support what veterans are doing. We're proud of America, and what can we do to help? And so when you said that in the middle of what you were just saying, I got it, and I absolutely agree with you. So thank you.
Thank you.
And one of the things is that, and I just want to clarify, is that this is open to all. It's low income. We speak specifically to sort of the veterans companies that are giving, but BPG has been giving specifically to low income individuals and veterans, to clarify. So, Al.
Well, I really like this conversation between Brian and Dale. I really like it. So I suggest that maybe the V.A.C. at the future discuss this very issue. The issue being, how does the V.A.C., a bunch of veterans, think that you folks out there, civilians, can help us? Give them suggestions. This is what we think would be most helpful. Doesn't have to be long or complicated, you know me. Keep it short. But I think it's a great way to expand our thought pattern and what we're trying to do. I think it's a great idea. I hope you guys will put it on the agenda. So.
Oh yeah, because that's something we're going to be working on in California specifically, and it's going to take some coalition building and working with people we don't like, but so what? We got to do that. It's part of coalition building.
And if I can real quick, and Brian, that's why I asked about your event, because my son lives in Agora Hills, just north of LA, and if he could ever touch base with you guys and support you, he wasn't a veteran. He chose not to go down that path, but he's one of those guys that grew up in a veteran's family, and he wants to do something. So
Yeah, no, that's great. And we're gonna, like I said, we're doing one in San Diego next month, but
Yeah.
then we're gonna be we're actually getting into the LA market now. Finally, man, what a pain in the butt that is. But we're gonna start doing a lot more things in LA, and there's actually a couple good dispensary owners who are veterans, and so they were all kind of fired up about that stuff. So yeah, I'll drag ATN down here too to be part of it.
Well, keep me in mind, and I'll hook you up.
All right, man.
He's a great guy.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. And that's how it's done. Bridging gaps through conversations and moving the whole conversation forward. I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight for our discussions. Nate Landau, Dale Sieglitz, Al Byrne, Michael Crowitz, Kendra Soul, George Armstrong, Brian Buckley, Lenora, and Michael Green. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the discussion. You all have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with V.A.C. Roundtable number 49. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your night.
The Veterans Action Council is a Pace Radio Network content provider.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at Pace Radio.